What's good, people? It's about that time to randomly relate reverse ranch and old hate. Now, Joyce, as we know, he just lost his suffered his second defeat in a row to Zilly Zhang. And pretty much, there's a lot of people that are saying that Frank Warren has already thrown him under the bus, saying that maybe he might want to retire and looking at his age. And it's Frank Warren, so I'll say this as far as it being over for Joyce, only time will tell. But for those who think it might be, I'll tell you what the possibilities in terms of looking at it realistically can be. If you look at how hard it is to make fights now, if you look at the fact that so many fighters are trying to avoid having that banana peel fight, so they don't want to slip. Okay. I can see in Frank Warren that he definitely doesn't value Joyce the way he does Tyson Fury. Now, when Joyce was winning, he was talking about how he'd steamroll everybody, he'd destroy Anthony Joshua 2 or 3 rounds, he'd do this, he'd do that. When he lost to Zhang the first time, Frank Warren said it was just one of those things. I mean, it happens in boxing and you come back better. It's not just because you lose, I'm paraphrasing, but he said something to that effect. But, great fighters, they all have lost and they've come back. Now that he's lost twice and he's not speaking the same way. So it sounds like he's convinced to me that it might be time for Joyce to hang it up. Whether Joyce is thinking that way or not, Frank Warren is. And if you listen to Joyce, he said that he's not done and he's coming back. So I get it. I understand, and I'm not here to defend Frank Warren or any of that. I'm saying, yeah, I can see why people feel that way. Now, me personally, saying it's a possibility it could be over for him for the simple fact that, look, he's 38 years old now. That's his second defeat. Once you've lost like him, you can say that aura of invincibility because people felt like he had the iron chin. Nobody could knock him out. Now, you always had people that were saying they think Wilder could, or they wasn't sure if Wilder could, but they think if anybody could, it would be Wilder. Like I told you guys, you can't always go by that. Wilder was the same guy that said Fury had, pillows for fish and couldn't knock out anybody, and he got knocked out with one punch by the same guy. So, the fact that Zhang was not really a really well-known fighter before he fought Joyce, and he wasn't seen as a fighter that was expected to do really big things. Well, he's 40. So he has to, he has to get what he's going to get. The sooner the better. Because at 40, same thing. It's hard to get these guys to want to get in there and fight. So for Joyce, what does he do? Rematch with Dubois. They're both coming off of a loss, which would probably be it would be considered a crossroads fight, and more so for Joyce, with both of them actually, because for one, the way Zhang beat him, people are going to look at Dubois and say, well, hey, can you overcome Joyce this time? You was holding your own, and the eye got swollen, got closed shut. Same thing that happened with Joyce against Zhang in their first fight. Then you got people that's now they're starting to say Joyce didn't look the same as far as like they think he's an aging fighter. He was, and I said before the fight, you never know. He took a bad beating in that first fight, so it could be that he's not the same as well. But it was, it is what it is. We're not gonna say for me, I just don't think that, like, for one, I don't see him, when I looked at him, it didn't look like, oh, he's an aging fighter. Like, it to me looked just like, for one, he just can't box. He couldn't figure out how to win by doing anything other than what he normally does. It was ineffective, and he got cracked. Okay, it's as simple as that to me, from what I saw. Joe Joyce has always been one-dimensional, but he has showed great determination. Yeah, a great solid chin and a lot of heart. And he didn't look scared in the fight. But we're talking about age. Look at it this way. And the fact that for him and Dubois to have that history, it would be a crossroads fight because they're both coming off of losses, and not to mention for Dubois, he went down 3 times against whoever the opponent was. I don't remember the guy's name, but he went down 3 times against that guy. Now he stopped him, and if you remember what Frank Warren said, people give him credit. They're saying this and that, but Dubois did come back and get the stoppage, right? But then, he blasted him as well. In the sense of, look, he'll shit on someone else who had the same performance as Dubois. But you can't big up Dubois and then shit on somebody else's performance. Like, look, when you see a guy go down, for example, look at Anthony Joshua, versus in his last fight, Hellenius. AJ didn't go down. AJ had a bloody nose. Now, you criticize a guy because he's boxing and not going after for the kill like he used to. But for a guy to get dropped 3 times and then for the guy to get up and win, yeah, he did. But look at the level of opposition that he fought. Who was this guy? Why was this guy able to, shit does happen, yes. So what I'm saying, I'm not really focused on what Frank Warren is talking about in terms of me making my judgment on what I see. So yeah, he just says a lot of rubbish. We know that. But when you look at those scenarios, it's like, example, if Warren was with AJ instead of Fury, do you think he'd be talking about Fury the way he does? Of course he wouldn't. Of course not. If Eddie Hearn was with Fury, do you think that he'd be backing up AJ over Fury? Of course not. So this is where, when it comes down to what people say, how many times have you heard a promoter say that the other guy's better than his fighter? I mean, the most I've heard is a promoter admit that his boy lost. I've heard the management team admit that the fighter lost and stuff like that. But in terms of, you talking about another fighter giving them more praise than your own, no, it's not going to happen. So I don't really care about all that. Now, you can make vital points and speak facts. But let's just be real. We already know what Frank Warren does. Now, back to Dubois versus Joyce. That fight would be a crossroads fight for both guys. The difference with Joyce and Dubois is a lot younger. So he does have more time on his side in terms of age. Whereas Dubois, he's known to be a quitter. He went down from a jab against Usyk. He went down with the eye injury, of course. But see, when we talk about muscle memory, we talk about what a fighter will resort to. A lot of fighters do go through that. They can hold their own until whether fatigue sets in, whether it gets to the point where through fatigue, the defense is starting to fall apart, they're getting hit more, whatever it may be. And it goes into the whole, damn, do I really want this? So it would be a crossroads fight for both people. And the point I'm getting at with those two is the only difference is with age. Dubois, like I say, he has more time. So he could find himself in a position of being moved to just fight lesser guys, rebuild them, and whatever it may be. See, and you got to also look at this too. They all talk shit about Anthony Joshua. It goes to show you how good AJ was, because they still give AJ shit, even though he's winning with a style that they don't like. But they make it seem like AJ can't beat anyone. These guys lose, and people still try to find a way to say, I think this guy will beat this guy or that guy. Now they all find themselves, even the fighters themselves, then they find themselves in the same situation. I got beat too. So now we're in the same company as AJ with losses, right? So, yeah, I mean, I think those two that might be the next fight for either guy. And like I said, yeah, it will be a crossroads fight that would they both need a win. After that win, I believe either guy would still be moved carefully because after that loss, once you one thing about a boxer is different. That's different with a puncher is the boxer is not known for beating you with just one thing. So when that brawler, that puncher is known for just doing one thing, when fighters are like that, that they only do one thing, it becomes easier to beat those guys because now fighters see, okay, this is what I have to do to beat this guy. With Joyce, his stamina was said to be the best amongst the division, and I agree. The dude could just go all night. He was so cautious against Zhang, and what he was doing was giving the illusion of being real busy. No, he was throwing punches, but with no actual real rhyme or reason. It's times you can see he's not even trying to hit anything. He's just moving, and like I said before, he was just trying to not give Zhang a clear look at him, and he wasn't really throwing anything, so it did nothing for him. So with all that stamina, it doesn't matter. It's just like having the hardest punch in the world, but if you can't land the shot, does it matter? Right? You could have the fastest feet in the world, but if you don't let your hands go, or if you have the fastest hands in the world, but if you don't let your hands go, then what does it matter, right? Or you can have really fast hands, but you really have no punching power. Okay, you can fight, but you have no chin. There's always something that will show up in a fight against certain guys. So now with Joe Joyce, he's been figured out. I mean, we seen once Mike Tyson lost to Douglas, Mike still had that power. But you saw guys start to look better against Mike Tyson. When he went to jail and came back, same thing. He wasn't the same fighter. You saw guys still look better. So eventually, it's like if Mike is going to beat me, he's going to have to knock me out, and that's what Mike was doing. You know, he was in there struggling to beat guys that he normally would have creamed, right? The thing with Joe Joyce and see Mike won a championship early. Joyce is still trying to become a champion. So with his age, I mean, his stock has went down big time. Fighters are not going to see any value in fighting Joyce. So even for Joyce to be, let's say if he is really still dangerous outside of fighting Zhang, let's say, who's going to really care? You understand what I mean? So the thing is, if you put Joyce in there, like for me, I think a guy like Frank Sanchez give all these guys nightmares. I believe he give any heavyweight nightmares. Are they willing to put Joe Joyce in there with a guy like a Frank Sanchez, even the up and coming Jared Anderson, or do they move him slowly just against lesser guys, try to rebuild him? Let's say he looks real impressive, knocking out some meatballs. Yes, there's going to be people that's aware and say, "Look, man, those guys wasn't that good," but also you got a lot of casuals, so it's the type of thing where bottom line is if he can do something that looks impressive to people, it's no different from Wilder knocking out Robert Helenius after getting beat, back to back times against Fury. And as soon as he does it, Deontay Wilder is back. That's what they say after everybody loses and comes back. And he's done nothing since then. And so at Joe Joyce's age, it's not like the fights are going to go exactly the way he want. I want this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, and then no. So the last thing that he needs to do that look, in terms of him being relevant, unless he wins a title, he basically was just a contender. He was on a roll. He looked like he was headed to do big things. But again, look at even from the time he fought Joseph Parker, he still hasn't fought for a title. He's just fighting guys. You understand? So even for people that say he should have just waited for Usyk, well, he didn't. And this goes to show you, see, this is what I mean about just putting the championship around somebody's waist and calling them a champion. There's no guarantee that he beats Usyk. You understand? So pretty much what happens if he loses to Usyk? Well, at least he lost to Usyk. And nobody would think he could beat that he would have lost to Zhang, right? So my thing is what he didn't do. You think in boxing the powers that be would say, well, look, man, if everybody wanted to see, Joyce versus Usyk, well, hell, why not Zhang? Look at what Zhang just did to Joyce, right? Let's give him that shot. So, yeah, it may be over for him in that sense. Because, I mean, who is he going to beat to get catapulted into that boxing scene? Who? Who's he going to put in there? You think Frank Warren is going to say, "Hey, man, you and Fury," and then Fury's running around here. He's retired. He's not retired, but he's always holding on to that belt. He's out here fighting MMA guys. So when you look at the timetable, he's only getting older. Everybody was just getting older. So what happens when he doesn't get the shot? Where does it lead him? So he's just gonna hang around, stick around, and he's not even in Derek Chisora's position because at least Derek Chisora was getting the opportunities. What is he gonna do? You want to be the second gatekeeper in the heavyweight division? Like, nah. It's my thing is I can understand that it could be over for him due to his age and the fact that it's hard to make fights and the fights that people really want. And the fact is he didn't have an easy road before he lost. So for him to get to where he is now and then lose 2 times in a row, it's going to be a hard climb back up. Not to mention, Frank Warren is not sounding like he has too much faith. He doesn't have any faith at all in Joe Joyce at this point. You could hear it in his interview. So, and at that age, like I said, I mean, what is he going to do? Change trainers and start all over again at 38 years old? No. For Zhang, we don't know what it means for him. Why? For the same thing. It's hard to make fights, and at 40 years old, he might find himself having to fight an Andy Ruiz. Do you understand me? Or another 2 or 3 fights before they even consider putting him in there with Usyk. You understand what I'm saying? Because there's not going to be Fury. Fury doesn't want to fight him. So the most that may have came out of this for Zhang is that he wound up defeating the juggernaut Joe Joyce when he was looking invincible to people. But yeah, I mean, so I can understand that. So it's not just a Joe Joyce thing, really. It's Zhang as well. Because if Zhang doesn't get the fights that he need, I mean, what happens when Father Time starts to, hey, all right, it's time for me to start slowing you down now. Your hands are about to slow down. Your feet are about to slow down. You know, and not to mention, when you got a guy like Tyson Fury, who, like I said, is going to tell everybody how he can beat everybody, so there's no need to fight them. A guy like Deontay Wilder, who's going to tell everybody that he can beat everybody, so there's no need to fight them. Who else? Do you want to see Zhang versus Dillian White? I don't think so. Do you want to see Zhang versus Parker, who's a leftover of Joyce? And you see what Joyce did to him? I don't think so. And there's nothing about Parker's style that should bother Zhang. So do you really want to see those fights? No. Then you have an up and coming, Jared Anderson, who right now might not be ready for Zhang. Really, to be honest with you, might not be ready for Zhang. And that thing is, you never know when Father Time's going to kick in, like I said. So do you really want to see that? Do you want to see him have to fight the guys that Fury won't fight, that Wilder won't fight, that these sanctioning bodies just fights they won't make happen? He's not in the same shoes as Jared Anderson. He's not in the same shoes as that younger guy that can gamble more because he has more time. He doesn't have that kind of time. It's just more wear and tear on the body. And so yeah, this might be the biggest thing in Zane's career is that he just beat Joe Joyce back to back. He may never become champion because these guys may not want to fight him. And it would really show up Tyson Fury if Usyk was to take that fight. Okay, because everybody keeps saying, and they call Usyk a cruiserweight. They keep saying all this stuff about Usyk. And here's my thing, okay? I give the man credit for having the heart to go in there and fight like he's supposed to. We've seen Evander Holyfield do it. We've seen different guys do this before. It's not like it's unheard of that a heavyweight wants to fight guys, even though he's much smaller than they are. That's what you call yourself the champion of the world. To sit here and say I can beat any fighter, dead or alive, I'll fight anyone, anytime, and all that, but then you won't fight these guys, and you're using your so-called superstar status as an excuse to not fight them, then I mean, if you want to call that a champion, then you call that a champion. But at the end of the day, because boxing has no structure, because everybody's afraid of losing money, and everybody wants to get the good graces of someone else, even though they're doing nothing for the sport. Everything is simply about themselves, their bank accounts, but they're doing nothing for the sport. Um, really, guys, that's where it might be over for Joyce and for Zane. To be honest with you, that right there can be the reason that Joe Joyce doesn't go forward. Now, how beat up Joe Joyce is physically, how much wear and tear, um, it's and once guys get knocked out like that, it's hard to really be what you used to be. And the reason why people don't think that about Wilder is because Wilder doesn't fought none of these top guys. You understand what I'm saying? He gets destroyed by Fury. Yeah, he's able to drop Fury to his credit, 4 times in 2 of their fights. But at the same time, look at what happened. He caught Fury slipping. Fury in there being all cocky and arrogant, dropping his hands and not expecting something to come back. And Wilder, hey, okay, you want to drop your hands, okay, and he cracks him, okay, but he got back up. And the only elite fighter on his resume is Fury. That's the only elite fighter, the only one. Anytime you win championships and nobody's talking about the guys, who talks about Berman Stavern? Whoever talked about Berman Stavern? Whoever talked about Malik Scott? Whoever talked about Luis Ortiz? That was Luis Ortiz got more popularity for losing to Wilder than he did with anything else in his career. And he's built up to be the boogeyman by Team Wilder. So, just saying, and I'm just being honest about it. So, yeah, when you say it's the way Wilder knocked these guys, look at these guys he knocked out, name them, and then just think to yourself, he should have knocked them out. Huh? Should he or should he not have knocked these guys out? You know? So yeah, these guys don't want to fight Zhang. So Wilder's about the challenge. Why won't he fight Zhang? We don't need him and his fanboys to tell us how he'll knock Zhang out. Go show us. And that goes for Fury. Hey, if fucking Eddie Hearn could set something up with Zhang and AJ, why not? Why not? I'm pretty sure people would want to see AJ versus Zane to see what will happen. They will want to see Wilder versus Zane to see what will happen. They will want to see Fury or, Usyk versus him. But the way boxing has been working is, okay, he looks good. He basically is on a roll right now. He's on fire. So let's just get some water and douse that fire out. Let's not keep the flame going. Let's put him in a title eliminator. Another worthless title eliminator or something to that effect. So yeah, it could be over for Zhang the same way in terms of quality opponents, because I don't think none of these guys really want to fight him, to be honest with you. To be honest with you. And the way these fights have been going, it's just been like, okay, it's a win, but it's worthless because it's not leading to a title shot. And for Joe Joyce, for him to be on the losing end, who do you match him up with? And I honestly feel like the next fight, for him to fight, it's a crossroads fight. Him versus Dubois. It's a crossroads fight, man. But is that gonna actually happen? This is me saying this. It doesn't mean that the powers that be in boxing or people. I don't know. I don't know, because if you're gonna put him in there with another top tier guy, who? If you want, let's say this, if you want to match him up with one, okay, fine. But is it guaranteed to happen? This is what I'm saying. And after that type of defeat, well, the same rebuilding process you see Anthony Joshua, doing right now, does Joyce do the same thing? And at this point in Joyce's career, look, we've seen him trying to be different against Zhang, and we see where it. I mean, you can just see it's not in him. He's not comfortable. He's not doing anything that's helping him to win with that style that he fought against Zhang. Now people went from saying that that Joe Joyce would steamroll Anthony Joshua to AJ and knock him out. Every time a guy looks good, then loses, they change their opinion about him beating another guy. And the last fight that AJ had was against Hellenius, but that right hand was every bit as devastating as Wilder's right hand. And you can see that AJ's not scared, man. He's just cautious. It's not the same. Okay? You may not like his style. That's fine. You don't have to like it. But he's winning. Does that mean he beat Zhang? Not necessarily. But do you think that people are not intrigued? I wonder what would happen though. What if AJ catch him with that same right hand? What if Zhang catches AJ? Let's not be stupid. AJ went down against Ruiz several times, but he got up. He was never like wobbly. My legs are gone. So, but regardless, it's like people will be intrigued. Now, what if that fight happened and AJ won? Now it's like, yo, make AJ and Fury happen, right? But of course, you're gonna have Fury fans, whether people within the sport or just the fans from the outside. But bottom line, either way, Fury will beat AJ. This one guy did an interview and he said Zhang has no chance against Fury. And it's like, I'm pretty sure that's music to Fury's ears because that's what he wants you guys to feel. I don't need to fight these guys. Who is he to me? He's a bum. I'm not Joe Joyce. Joyce is a bum. You understand? And to show you something, you see how Anthony Joshua went over with Derek James? So he's big up. He's giving props to, the Frank Martins, the Jamel Charlos, the Errol Spences. He had support for Spence when Spence lost and had words of encouragement for him. Notice Tyson Fury never did that to Joe Joyce. He told Frank Warren. Remember after what fight was it? Joe Joyce had just beat somebody. It might have been Parker, or whoever it was. But and Tyson Fury's walking around talking about himself. Never once said anything to a stablemate. Never once said anything to in a positive way about Joe Joyce at that point. And then even when he, come on, Joyce. Come on, what about me and you? If I can't get the dirty teeth little man and all that, the ugly little man, and what happened? And I told you guys, it's not going to happen. It's nothing but talk. It's not going to happen, right? But you never hear him say anything to really build Joyce up. He told Joe Joyce that he needed to build up his profile. And, this dude was willing to fight Manuel Char. But he's telling Joe Joyce he needs to build up his profile. But he never just really said anything to they got the same fucking promoter, but he never says anything to show real support to Joe Joyce. He always talks about Joe Joyce like he's a novice. No, here's the thing. Joe Joyce has already peaked. He's gotten as good as he's going to get. He's not going to get better. Okay, reality check. So, he needs something spectacular to happen in the ring and getting the right opponent so he can get those opportunities. But when you look at his age, that's the point. Like what happened with him and Zhang, he can't afford that to happen again against any other opponent. One more loss for him, and it's like, okay, you got to understand, the guy's 38 years old. He's taken a lot of punishment already. So it's not, just because he lost. No. But y'all the same people that act like AJ's over just because he lost. You make it sound like, he has as many losses as Derek Chisora. But look at Chisora's career. He's been the so-called gatekeeper for how many years now? So this is not what Joe Joyce wants. And he said he wants to continue to fight, that it's not over. And listen, we'll just have to see where he goes from here, how good he looks. Can he bounce back? Only time will tell. Can Zhang get the fights that he need? Because even if he go home and fight in China, okay, he could have a massive draw over there and everything. That's great. But if he doesn't get title shots, then again, it's like, yeah, you beat the juggernaut, and then let's say he beats whoever else they put in front of him. But if it's not a fight against a Fury, it's not a fight against an Usyk, okay. Can we make the fight between him and Wilder? Can you make the fight between him and AJ? Can you make the fight between, him and a Frank Sanchez? Does these fights happen? That's what people got to understand. You can't just assume that's what's going to be next. It would be cool to see, but I don't think that they want to really put Zhang in that position. And also, too, let's not be fooled. Zhang was not supposed to be a tough fight for Joyce. Zhang was, people looked at the Urkovich fight, seen him get tired, seen him go down. You know what they thought? Okay, it'll be good for like the first 2, 3 rounds. Joyce is going to wear him out, steamroll through him, and look great. We're trying to make a demand for him. That's not what happened. And in fact, the rematch, he did to Joyce what Joyce was expected to do with him. The only difference is he did it more strategic. It wasn't just come forward, come forward. No, he boxed and moved. He came in when he needed to. He stepped back when he needed to. And he looked sharp. And you know what? He got him out of it. But you got to understand, his age is also a factor. Now, we saw George Foreman at 45 become champion again by knocking out Michael Moorer. But you can't sit here and just assume that everybody's going to have the same fate. But not only that, you got to understand, Foreman was already champ of the world in his younger years. This was a comeback for him. So this is his second career coming back into the ring. And he pulled it off. And he already had a big name. He had a lot of respect. Joe Joyce basically got to the point where he got to, he put himself in position to be mentioned in the same name as these other guys. He, had become one of the elite guys. But the fight with Zhang wasn't supposed to be what it was. And Zhang was not looked at. As I said, you heard Eddie Hearn, you heard Frank Warren, you heard other people say Zhang is not elite. Yet they were all saying that Joe was. So now that he's beaten him twice, you can't sit here and say he's not elite anymore. And then if you're going to say it's because Joyce is old, well, Zhang is 2 years older than he is. Now, physically, he's taking more punishment. Maybe, his style got, taking a lot more punishment. But hey, at the end of the day, instead of trying to build Zhang up, the powers that be, will feel more like, but we don't want him. So let's keep moving the goalpost. Let's keep dodging him so we can put who we want in that position. And that's what you got to understand. That can work the same way for Joyce, can go the same way for Zhang. That they avoid Zhang like they was avoiding Joyce. Joyce was never seen as that guy. I remember a lot of British people were saying they don't fancy Joyce. They just don't see it in him. And then Joyce kept fighting with his non-defense, with him taking flush shots and showing no real boxing skill at all, just one-dimensional, but it was working for him. And people said, you know what? Like I told you, that's just part of his style, man. Taking punishment is actually a part of it, because when these guys are wearing down and they start to tire, and then psychologically, what do I got to hit this guy with? I'm hitting him with everything. He keeps coming. And we've seen him win all his fights the same exact way. And with Joe Joyce, he's a devastating puncher. No, he's not a devastating puncher. He's a volume puncher. And the majority of the shots, like when you see guys go down, it's because of the volume, and he wears them down, and it worked for him. Not against Zhilei Zhang. So, that being said, guys, yes, that could be the reason that it's over. I didn't put Zhang on the thumbnail, whatever, and all that, but it's all good. I didn't mean to. I didn't need to. But yeah, I'm just pointing out that his age, he's older than Joyce. Okay, he's 2 years older than Joyce. So they both can actually have the same fate in terms of being avoided, not being able to get the fights that they want. And I'm pretty sure Joyce was hoping that his next fight will be for a world title, just like Zhang is hoping that, okay, I beat this man twice now. Give me a shot. And I would like to see him, at least get the shot. Whether he wins or not, well, we won't know if they don't give him the shot, right? And before you know it, he's 41, then he's 42, he's 43. It's like, when is he going to get a shot, right? So, and then you never know who may beat who, but overall, that right there will be the reason, could be a reason that either guy winds up just not getting to where they wanted to go. And, back in China, he's big. He's big in China. But and let's not forget, he is a guy who his name came up when they were talking about Anthony Joshua doing a tour of China and having like a total of 3 fights and then coming back and then fighting Wilder or fighting Dillian White. First they said Wilder, but and look how long it look. They still haven't gotten the ring and fought, and it's been years. So, and these are fights that people want. So this is what I'm saying. And looking at Zhang's age and what he's done, it's going to be more people trying to not give him the push he needs than it is of them saying, yeah, let's get him a shot. Hopefully something can happen where that fight can actually happen. Because if you even look at the list of, you go through every sanctioning body and look at the top 10. And if you look at who's there and you already know certain fights are just not going to happen, what's the harm in giving Zhang a shot? What's the harm in that? What's the harm in that? So, anyway, that's what I see and what it could be in terms of it being over for Joe Joyce. You know, I'm not saying it's over for him like he can't fight anymore. Joyce has to go back to what he was doing. Now, also, it gets to a point, sometimes a lot of fighters, once they get knocked out, it gets to the point where they can't take a punch like they used to. But this is things that only time will tell. You know, I don't expect Joyce to change in terms of him as a fighter. You could see he's not comfortable trying to fight differently. And at the end of the day, man, even if you build him up, rebuild him in terms of giving him the right opponents, and let's say he can walk through them and get them out of there, then that's great. But you got to look and think, well, what happens once I put him back in there with another top guy? And again, it's just so difficult to make these fights happen. So for any of us to imagine, well, he should do this, this, and this, and this, you got to use the reality. You have to tap in and, hey, that doesn't mean that that's what's gonna happen. That's what we would like to see, or that's what would suit him. That's what would suit boxing. It will be a treat to get to see this guy and this guy. And y'all know how it goes. Anyway, talk to me in the comment section. Never fall in love with lies. Remember, the truth brings hate out of people. And I'll catch y'all on the next video.